some of their concerns. Looks like we did just start the recording, Susie or Michelle, is that correct? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Um, Let me start with this point. I'm not against growth. Marissa and I aren't against growth. Um, Both residential growth and business growth here in Windsor, I believe that for the town to continue to grow, a community needs to responsibly plan for the present and future needs of that community. I want people to continue to enjoy, sorry, our dog's in the background here. Um, I want people to continue to enjoy the downtown atmosphere of Windsor in a similar or better way as they have for the last 125 years or more. Uh, I want to ensure that any growth that's proposed serves the needs of the community without further entrenching infrastructure and other problems that are already existing. I believe the fact that Old Town business locations are currently very attractive is highlighted by the number of new restaurants and other businesses that have opened on Main Street in the last year or so. The demand for business locations in Old Town is so apparent that there have been a number of proposals, including this one from Tribe, to build additional business space in the Old Town area. I want to make clear, I understand the desire to have more business locations in Windsor and to maximize the tax revenue that streams through the business spaces in our town. I get that, and I understand that the importance of that to both the town and to our community as residents. I believe, though, that continue to grow, Windsor has to increase the tax revenue and continue to increase the services that are available to residents. We have to grow both. We can't just grow the tax revenue side without addressing the infrastructure side that is going to come with increased usage of our town for business purposes. I also want to remind everyone, and I know a number of the chamber board members, you guys are super aware of how frequently Old Town and downtown is used for different business events or fairs or stuff. And I want to remind everybody, though, that the downtown currently hosts town events, it hosts chamber events, it hosts other business events that are crucial to maintaining and sustaining a healthy downtown and a healthy town. Aside from the concert in the park series and the farmers market, which bring people to downtown 2 days a week, every week for the entirety of the summer, there's about an event a month down at the park down there. Santa was recently at the park. There's a trick or treat event that's hosted there, the All Town Barbecue. I mean, the number of events that are hosted between the town, the chamber, and other businesses in that space is pretty dramatic. So if we lose the parking to accommodate the patrons for those events, and specifically both for the patron parking and the employee parking, I believe that we're setting the downtown up for failure. I have concerns that if there's not adequate parking, the existing businesses, let alone any new businesses, won't be able to thrive in the way that they have. I want to link, can we screen share? I guess we didn't really. Michelle, I sent you an email, and we can pull it up, to a Colorado article that is recent. It's from September of this year, where a bakery in Old Town called the Little Bird Bake Shop, here it is, thank you very much, is moving out of Fort Collins' Old Town because of parking issues. So if you'll scroll down, Michelle, down to the second page, it talks about the lady's quote and kind of some of her concerns. I would be happy, or Michelle would be happy, potentially, maybe Michelle, to send that out to anybody who's interested, so you can kind of take a peek through that and review it. My biggest concern, and again, I understand that we're not Fort Collins, and I don't want to be Fort Collins, but what I don't want to set up is the story that runs in this news article, which is, a long time downtown business owner was forced to move because of parking issues, because after hearing that longtime customers stopped coming in because of parking complications, they felt the only way to change, or to make a positive change, was to move out of the downtown area. So I really want to make sure that that we're making very intentional choices when it comes to ensuring the vitality of our downtown. And I think one thing that I've noticed as a downtown resident, is I think that we have a pretty healthy and well, well running downtown right now. The number of restaurants that have moved in recently is significantly more than when Marissa and I first moved in here in 2013, and the Duke was a pretty much empty bar, right? So I mean, the fact that there are now businesses and restaurants in all those spaces, I think, is a super big plus. The last point I want to make before I turn it over here to Jason in a second is while talking about the business effects of this proposal and this decision are super important, I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the personal impacts. Because at this point, what we have regarding that land that's designated or would be permanent parking under this proposal, essentially is a lot of parking that's 350 to 450 parking spots. And Stacy will talk about how often and what the usage of those spots are. But one thing to know is in the parking plan that the town did, the highest used parking area were those downtown, those backlot spots, and they were full about 75% of the time. So taking away those 350 to 450 parking spots is really going to have a huge impact on the parking downtown. What that's going to do is force more parking into the residential areas. And that's where I get back into the personal business, effects of this. Is I have a 3.5-year-old kiddo. Some of you have met London, some of you have not. London plays with the neighbor kids across the street. There are 5 neighbor kids within 3 houses that are all within 3 to 7. And right now I feel really comfortable letting our kids all play in the front yards of our houses, because if there's a parking event, we're generally pretty aware of it in advance, and we don't let them play when there are a bunch of people coming over for events at the park. But my concern is if that happens all the time, it's going to be significantly more dangerous for the neighborhood kids to play in the front yards of their homes, and it's going to force those kids to go play in the backyards of those homes, which is going to be more problematic, right? So the business effects of this proposal are huge, but I also want to kind of remind people of the effects of the downtown residents and the families downtown that are bearing the brunt of the parking burden that isn't going to be borne by the backlots parking if that's removed. Okay, so with that, that's kind of the close of our portion of the presentation. I'll turn it over to Jason and Stacy more specifically.
Sorry, new computer. Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay. Jason Schaefer, owner and chef of Chimney Park Restaurant and Bar and Hearth Restaurant and Pub. I've been downtown here, Chimney Park for 15 years. Gosh, Hearth has been over 7 years now. Being an owner of 2 downtown businesses, and also I'm the landowner at Chimney Park. I take a lot of pride in our small and growing town. Definitely proud to say, what we have anchored downtown here, definitely helping attracting new businesses, some of the things under the radar. I know the guys over at the mill. I know Troy. I've known the guys at the tavern a long time. So it's been great to see all this grow. So I'm very excited for that. Also a member of the Chamber of Commerce at both businesses. I was part of the Parking Study Steering Committee. So I've got pretty good knowledge of, generally what's going on down here just on a day-to-day basis. So, in come all the, things about parking. I'll hopefully not talk about the same things that Cameron talked about. But also, too, I was a past board member of the DDA. Was on the DDA, with Dan and Brent when we did purchase the lots back there, the 400 block. I do understand things from back then, 2012. Sure, we had a vision of developing it. I'm not so sure this project that's being presented is the right fit for what the needs are of the downtown. I am definitely pro-development. Hopefully not viewed as somebody that doesn't want any of the restaurants or businesses coming down here. Definitely the whole rising tide thing with chips certainly is a major factor. And with the tavern, the mill, all the new businesses coming in, especially with Better Gumbo kind of balancing it out, if you will, on that end of town. I'm sitting in the chimney basement, so sorry, there might be some loud noises, restaurant noises going on if you guys can hear like the phone. But it's been great to see this town develop and grow. But I just feel like this proposed development proportionate to our downtown, it's just not the right fit. As Cameron was talking about, these parking spaces are so needed by, all of our guests, our employees. Mainly our employees will park back there or leave Main Street out here clear. Certainly taking away those spots and putting in a development is a major concern of mine. And I do believe that's why there is about 200s on the ballot in special election. I guess there is enough of a crying, hey, listen, we need to really look at this. Just to touch on a few things, the special events, certainly those are always concerns. I mean, yes, there are events year round. There's not events every single week, especially now in the winter. Thursdays are a major concern. So summer months are our busier months at both restaurants, just the weather's being better. So if you look at Monday through Friday, Friday being the busiest kind of weekday of the week, Thursday is our second busiest day. So we have to look at how are we going to have our guests park on the Thursday. It is a challenge. I've talked to many of our regulars, especially at Hearth, that say they drive down Main Street here. It's full. We figure you guys were full, so we just drove away. We went to Water Valley, then went elsewhere. So that's always a concern when I hear guests say that we're going to come out and we basically left because we couldn't find a parking spot, and that's now. So there's a major concern of this as this develops. The other part too is, and I'll go back in the proportionate part of what I think of commercial versus residential of this proposed project. We get a majority of our people, nearly 100% of my customers drive here. I'd say there's a smaller percentage of people at Hearth will walk over, ride their bikes. Obviously, Chimney is not the kind of place you're going to ride a bike to. So anyway, I would say, from the 80528 section of Windsor that is in Larimer County, we get good, base of that customer base that drives out. A lot of people from Timnath that come here because there's literally nothing in Timnath. There's no sit-down service in Timnath. Certainly east of here, all the new neighborhoods are popping up down 392. And then we get a lot of people from Greeley and West Greeley, and all those folks are driving. So, parking is just a major thing that we need to have right now. So then, if perfect world, if I were to be asked, I'd be honest with you. Yeah, sure. I don't want my view blocked. If you guys had your house, your business, especially Hearth, if there's a view, I don't know what's being proposed. I don't know what's going to be built, but I do know that there's something that you can build up to 65 feet. And, especially at Hearth, I wouldn't want that view taken away. I think people coming in and out of Main Street, just seeing the lake as you come in, it's just kind of hard to see how that can really all come in and be perfect, where we still have our view, we still have all these parking spots, and we have this development. From the proportionate side of it, it seems very, very residential heavy. I never really saw the final numbers of what's being proposed. And I'm kind of, this is, I believe that ballot 200 is about rezoning. This is about zoning. What the current zoning that was passed through was to put that 65-foot buildings could be on that site, and then 200 is for parking. So if you look at the total footprint of that project, and there's only 12,000 feet of commercial property, that seems extremely small. And if you look at it from a tax revenue part of it, that I just don't see how that's really going to drive much. I mean, that's put in proportion. That's the entire Hearth building and Chimney Park building put together is basically 12,000 square feet. So I'm just the proportion of taking away of all this parking, putting in these residents, and it's kind of like putting a block on all the people that are going to be driving in. They're spending good money. I mean, I've been here for 15 years, 23 years total, with the two businesses, but where are those guests? Where are my guests going to park? I mean, it's a huge question. There's so many other things that we're up against too. There's many outlying factors. Just my business specifically, I am a restaurant. There's plenty of other businesses out here, but we have the rising food costs. I mean, any product cost is going up. We have wages going up this year. We have state mandated benefits that we have to go in effect this year. We still have a shortage of labor, and for me to have to worry about where are my guests going to park, I do sit up at night thinking about all these things. So it's certainly concerning. I would love to see the back here developed. I just don't think that what's being proposed and taking away the parking is something that I just don't see how it can possibly work. And that's all I got. I guess I'll pass it on over to Stacy, and sorry the phone was ringing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Stacy, can you hear us?
She's muted. Hold on. Okay, there we go.
Oh. Can you hear me? Hello, my name's Stacy Manweiler. I've worked for my family ever since middle school. So I'd say I and my sister, we are planning on taking over ownership here pretty soon from my father, Charlie. And so we've been in the area, we've grew up here, we've been down at this store almost every day for the majority of our life. And we love Windsor. We've seen it grow, and we want to continue to see it grow. And I think, again, I will for the third time say that we are for growth. I think that's a big misconception with the Manweilers is, people are thinking we're not wanting this area to grow. We certainly are. I'm gonna kind of pony off of Jason's comment about how this development might not be the right fit for the area. He talked about the proportion of the development. I agree. I was kind of excited to see what Tribe could come up with after dealing with Brinkman, who was the first developer, and kind of getting stonewalled with, we have ideas about more retail versus residents. All of us want to see more retail, right? That's the whole point, is driving the revenue, getting more business to stay in town. And when, we're now at the second developer that has shown essentially the same thing. I think there's 3,000 square feet of more retail that they're planning for in this development, but in the respect of having 3 blocks worth of property, and it's prime property at this point, because it's kind of the only property that's left. So to only see 12,000 square feet of retail was very concerning. And then obviously them cutting out, any type of parking that was existing for the existing businesses, that was concerning. And we have about 18 employees here now, so we've almost doubled in size within the last 2 years. Everyone parks in the back. We have our fleet. We have 2 trucks a week. We have trash trucks. There's all kinds of stuff going on back there, and we have kind of done some scouting on how many vehicles are in that parking lot on a daily basis. We've gone out to take photos morning, noon, and night. And the average is between 50 to 70 vehicles. And this is specifically on the 400 block. And I think that this block, the 400 block, is the most concerning. We were excited to see those plans from the developer, because we thought that perhaps the 500 block and the 600 block, there is that potential for residences. The businesses on those blocks have direct access to the back of their building. They have the parking already structured, but the way that the railroad track goes, that kind of cuts off on our block. So, for us to have private meetings with the developer and ask for some compromise or some more creative types of ideas on how can this be designed where, we have a lot more retail and we have parking, we have a destination that people can come to. Because quite honestly, I will pony off of Jason again, 90% of our customer base is drive-in customer base. We don't have customers walking through town to come buy appliances. It's a location-based retail where people drive to our store and shop. And I think that a lot of the shops down here are in the same boat right now. I understand wanting to have a resident base in a downtown area, but we're not at the scale of what Loveland or Fort Collins is. We don't have the square footage. We don't have the area that Fort Collins and Loveland does to accommodate the heavy of how many residential units are being put into this development. We need to focus on parking. We need to focus on retail. And, that point, Milers, parking first, we have somewhere for our customers to come. We have to have somewhere for employees to come so we can run our businesses. And we've been asking for kind of a compromise on some of these designs, and I feel like it's just been kind of put on deaf ears. So, we're hoping that this petition and this ballot issue, I think that the people have spoken. Hey, they want to be able to come down here. They want to hang out here. I know that the DDA is really trying to push for a walkable type of district. They want people to come down and hang out and walk around. Well, so do we. Obviously, we definitely do. But we have to acknowledge that people have to drive here. It has to become a destination for them to get to. They have to be able to park somewhere that's proximate, that's easy to get to. So they downtown. And our downtown is much different than Fort. We have that beautiful lake behind us. So if you compare downtown to
but no,
and is a just continue to try to make it that. I guess my other viewpoint is, the 400 block again is just the most unique block in this situation. And if you're going to plan for a development that contains residences, that contains retail location, you have to add the parking component. And I know that it will contain self-parking, but we've never gotten a straight answer on, is this going to be public parking? Is this going to be parking that my employees can park in to come to work? Or are they going to have to park on Walnut Street or on Locust or Elm and walk to work? I feel like we've had so many questions and have never gotten straight answers regarding how this is actually going to work. You know, we need to know this. This is what Jason and I sit up at night and wonder, like, how are we going to, on a day-to-day basis, continue to run our businesses? So, you know, I feel like we need to bring more retail down here. We need to bring more parking. Let's keep it lighter on the residents, and we need to plan for the parking. So I guess that's my kind of viewpoint on it. I know I didn't bring a lot of facts and figures, but I know that there are at least 50 to 70 vehicles in this lot on a daily basis for normal business function. And obviously that doubles or triples when there's events down here. So there is a need for parking. And that's it.
Any last minute comments for you guys? You got about a minute left.
No, we'll yield the last minute.
Awesome. Thank you guys. We truly appreciate that. And so now we'll move to our other side. Brett and Dan, you guys are on.
Thank you for the opportunity for speaking with you all this evening. One thing I want to reiterate is this is about the ballot measure 200. It's not about whether somebody is for development or the development that is proposed or against it. We're here to speak about the ballot measure of 200 and how that will stifle the downtown and create stagnancy. And we're already seeing that with the, I know everybody talked about the restaurants, but before we get into all that stuff, I've been downtown for 30 years. I taught at the middle school for 9 years previously, so I've been here for 39 years, all hours of the night. As far as working in my shop. So I've seen the back lots, the Main Street, 5th Street, all that stuff, all hours of the day. I'll yield to Brent so he can introduce himself and give his background.
Yeah, so my name is Brent Finney, and I own Windsor Eye Care at 515 Main Street. We moved here in 2009 and actually opened our business in 2010 when there were 8 vacancies in downtown, actually 8 vacant storefronts. When I moved here right after the tornado. And so, first of all, the other thing that we need to say is that Dan and I are actually here as private business owners and private property owners. We're not here representing the DDA, actually. We're here as private citizens, actually, with a concern for downtown. So, and I'm not sure if Michelle, if you can let me share my screen here. I think you have to give me control though.
That's hard for her to do.
Exactly. All right.
I'm trying to figure this out here.
I got it.
Did you get it?
I think so.
Does everybody see that?
Yes.
So the biggest thing actually that we want to start off with is actually, this is not about the development. This is about protecting property rights. So 200 is actually not about a development. It's actually about property rights issue. So on this one.
So this picture was taken about circa 1910. If you look at the back, the area, yeah, right here, that's the 400 block, and going west, you see the 500 and 600 blocks. All businesses were on Main Street and in the area that we're calling the back lots right now. And the downtown was the social and economic hub of this downtown. So if we honor our past, we will allow the property to not be taken or vote against 200. And so the property is not taken by the town and implementing eminent domain so that we can have businesses flourish downtown. We can spread out our tax base. Because right now what's happening is businesses, as everybody knows, pays 4 times more than a resident does for property taxes. Well, with the advent of the school bond going through, and I support schools because I was a teacher and everything, but my taxes are going to go up. I own 4 properties downtown, $12,000 more dollars. I'm going to be paying $38,000 more dollars to our schools, which is great. But look at the last business that just went under, Tipsy Cricket. We didn't have enough foot traffic to sustain them, didn't have enough business downtown, and now we're going to be having more burden on our property taxes. Yeah, we all agree that we want more retail and we want more business, and the town is working on parking, which we're going to cover in a second. But first and foremost, we will never get to where Windsor once was as the economic hub of our town. You're going to see businesses going under. There's going to be traffic going to the new areas like Legends Park, who's going to be putting in proposed 11 restaurants, 3 hotels. They stated in Style Magazine that they want to be Windsor's new downtown. We're already competing against West Greeley, Centera, and it's almost like when I was a teacher. The new girl moves to town. You have a dance. All the boys want to dance with that new girl. Well, we're going to be the old girl here, and nobody's going to be coming downtown. They're going to be going to the new area. We have to have amenities for people to visit, more retail, more. And the other thing that's important, and I think too, is you have to have a downtown population to ensure that your future businesses can be sustained by customer base that will be here morning and into the evening.
So what we want to get back to is essentially, this is much more of a property rights issue than anything else. These properties, actually, all of these parcels have always been considered private, actually, except for the town parcel, which is not included in 200, actually. They were owned by the railroad, actually, and sold to private property owners. In fact, the DDA purchased the back lots behind 400 from a private property owner by the name of Kara Householder. We purchased actually the 500 block from a family called the Birch family that actually had a building on there. So we purchased these from private property owners, and they're basically still akin to private property. The DDA is actually set up essentially much like a corporation, just with a little bit different stakeholders. We don't have stockholders actually, but the stakeholders for these DDA properties are actually property owners within the DDA boundary. It actually, there's, I guess, sort of a misperception that everybody thinks that everybody in the general public is a stakeholder in these properties, actually, but that's not quite the case, actually. These are actually purchased by the DDA, and the only people that can actually be a part of the DDA are downtown property owners within the district boundaries, actually. And so essentially all of the property owners down here are akin to the shareholders of a corporation, essentially. And so when we get to talking about the properties that are included in 200, it's only this property in the 400 block and the property in the 500 block, actually. The town property wasn't included in this, even though actually that's all part of sort of the proposed development that has been talked about. And there's a reason why only the DDA parcels were actually included in this. It's because this is actually not a legal action. It essentially amounts to an eminent domain proceeding. And if the town parcel had been included in this, then the town would have been forced to reject the petition and would have required the petitioners to actually sue the town to put this on the ballot. But by not including that parcel, the town then was forced to essentially accept the petition, let it go to a vote. The problem with this is it's still a property rights issue, and now you're setting up actually for a potential lawsuit where the town is actually going to be the defendant in a lawsuit for trying to take this property. And it's really hard to believe that this actually wasn't done intentionally to leave the town property out of this. So what do we mean when we say eminent domain? Basically 200 is an attempt actually at a quasi-eminent domain proceeding, except that it's not being done actually through somebody coming in and taking ownership of the property. It's being done through zoning. the town of Windsor actually doesn't have a permanent parking zone designation actually. So this creates a new town code that essentially zones this property as only permanent parking. And you essentially are taking this property, and the owner, the DDA, would see no benefit actually. The property is essentially rendered worthless. And so you're essentially taking a property and creating a property that now has no value for the DDA essentially.
Well, it doesn't have any value for the town either. It's not the highest and best use. This group is asking the town to take somebody else's property. And in effect, what you're doing then is you're saying no to any income stream that could help our police, our fire, our schools, anything like that. That's off the table now. And so when you look at, not only eminent domain, but you also look at this can happen to you. If your property, say, is next to a park and you want to build your dream house, 1,283 people in this town could start a petition and say, you know what, we don't want you to build your house there. We would rather have this as a park. That sets a bad precedence. Not only, everybody here has said they're for development. What developer would step foot into Windsor knowing that this could happen to them? You're never going to have development. And you're also going to scare away. If I was the library board at this time, I'd be thinking, geez, this could happen to our property. It could happen to anybody.
So when we actually look at, everybody seems to be talking about downtown property actually, or parking. So that's the whole reason that the parking study was done. And there's been 2 parking studies done, one when the DDA was first created, and then the most recent one. And out of that parking study, actually, the town board has dedicated $1 million a year to acquire property to help with parking. 2 recent acquisitions actually are in the planning stages to create 2 new parking areas that will come online next summer. And the town is also working with existing property owners on the south side of Maine to utilize actually the parking lots that are underutilized essentially. And when we get to this, hang on just a second. This is actually one of the newly acquired parcels, this one as well. What's not drawn on here is actually all of this parking behind the 400 block on the south side, all of this parking behind the 500 block on the south side actually. Well, I'm sitting on actually plans right here in my office that the town planning department has brought to us to actually restripe and do all of the parking back here that would absorb actually anything that's lost here in conjunction with these parking lots. Not only that, they're actually still, the town is looking at additional parking options as well. So this is actually not that we're just taking parking away permanently. They actually have other proposals on the table. It's just that the people who are opposed to this won't talk about that because it doesn't fit their story or their narrative actually.
And if you look at the 2 lots owned by the DDA and the 400 block and the 500 block, once those are striped, landscaped, in and out access, those 2 lots will only yield 150 spots. With the town purchasing those 2 other lots, the shared parking plan by the town, and other $1 million a year they've set aside to purchase more property. And if we can have one-way parking, or excuse me, one-way in and out of the back lot area, you can also have parallel parking back there. And the area behind each of the buildings, that is also an area where the business owners are going to be slated to park back there also. So there's been careful thought for parking. Any development will go through all of the town planning, all of the public input, all of that stuff. Unlike this right here, the DDA doesn't have any chance to defend the property that they own. This is a move to circumvent the municipal code and implement eminent domain, telling the town, you will take this and we'll tell you what we want here. And that's constitutionally not right. The second thing that I want to point out here is any development that would ever occur back there by town code has to be self-parked. These are all things that are going to be worked out. But right now, we need to focus on 200.
So the other thing is that actually, this will help actually the Legion and all the other businesses downtown. The DDA and the town of Windsor have been working actually with the Legion to help try and move them actually into a more functional location. If this passes, actually, it basically blocks any of those plans from being realized because the funding is no longer there. It also will help all the businesses. Everybody wants more restaurants, everybody wants more retail, but that requires foot traffic. Yes, there are destination businesses downtown. We all know that actually, but there's also those restaurants and retail locations that require foot traffic essentially. Tipsy Cricket just went out of business. 408 Exchange is cutting hours. The other thing is the infrastructure. Actually, when you talk about infrastructure in Windsor, it was mentioned earlier actually, the infrastructure is in place for a development like this already in downtown. You don't have to rebuild the streets. You don't have to put in new sewers. You don't have to put in new water lines. The electric lines are already there. When you're talking about a development actually that's brand new, like the one that's going on out north, that's all brand new infrastructure that cost a whole lot of tax dollars actually. But stable residential populations help with foot traffic in our downtown. That helps stop the tax leakage out of Windsor actually and keeps the businesses here. And we're competing in downtown with all of the new developments. So if we don't improve, actually, downtown Windsor dies again. When I moved here in 2010, actually, downtown was a sad place. Thankfully, there's a bunch of property owners who've invested a bunch of money to create actually a much better downtown. But the bottom line is actually, this is a property rights issue, actually. They're essentially trying to create a new zoning district in downtown that will take these two properties and essentially render them as worthless for the current property owners. And you heard every single one of them actually say, well, we're not opposed to actually putting something on those lots. Well, that's exactly what 200 does, is prevents anything from ever being put on those lots.
And I also wanted to say I have customers that come in from out of town also. I would like my customer to be able to park down the street from my business, enjoy our downtown, walk through some shops they haven't walked through, have an experience of downtown, see some different restaurants. And for people to say, oh, well, any development will block the view of the lake. I want to dispel that right now, because as you come in going west into the downtown, you see the lake right there. Anytime there is a railroad car parked on the railroad track, it's 14 feet high. I've measured them. It blocks the view of the lake anyways. We have no control over any of that. But I'm sure through all the interaction that any development would have, things can be worked out that accommodates business people, townspeople, and also is aesthetically pleasing and architecturally pleasing to the downtown and congruent with the downtown. The other thing about this, if we don't have any, if the town is allowed to take the property away from a property owner, you will never see an increase. Like Jason, you said before, it's hard to get workers downtown. Well, yeah, if we had residents downtown, we would have a built-in labor force downtown. And the other thing too, rising costs of commodities coming in to run your business. Well, it'd be nice to have more customers downtown. It would be nice to have more businesses and more amenities, because like Brent said, when I first came 29 years ago, there were 12 vacancies downtown. At one time, the planning department actually okayed a chicken slaughterhouse to go in to the 4th Street building. That's how desperate they were for businesses to come in. Businesses were leaving all the time. We're not going to have the rosy economic times that we had. It's going to ebb and flow. We need to prepare for that by having the downtown to be competitive with all the new areas. Look at how much sales tax gets leaked out of this town that's not spent in Windsor. All that money is not reinvested in Windsor or your downtown. And overwhelmingly, if you look at all the surveys, people say, I cherish our downtown. Well, if we don't invest in our downtown, if we don't keep our downtown growing, that's not going to occur. That's why we need the voters' help to vote no on 200 and to go back to the history to preserve our downtown, but also to allow our downtown to thrive for years to come, as well as the Legion. The Legion, if They're in a building that's, as Brent said, they're in a building that's in very bad condition. They have an opportunity to be able to move to the 4th Street location, which is just south of Windmere Real Estate. That's never going to occur if 200 passes. They won't have the chance. That's all I have to say.
So basically, this is a property rights issue. This has nothing to do actually with the current proposed development. That's sort of an aside. If this passes, you can never develop anything on those lots. So this is much more a property rights issue that honestly should scare the hell out of everybody.
You're done, Suzanne.
Awesome. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, thanks. We guys left me with about 10 minutes there, so we're good to go.
Susie,
Well,
before we get into too much of a Q&A, there were some things said by Dr. Finney and Mr. Staus that I feel like were attacking of character and nature. Yeah.
and I understand that, and that's why I said at the beginning of this, this is not a debate. I
don't want to turn it into a debate, but I do want to mention that any discussion of what we're doing or why we're doing it or how this affects them specifically is just not actuality. That's not true. So I'll leave it at that. You guys can ask whatever questions you would like from either side. But I just want to put on the record here that as much as Mr. Staus and Dr. Finney have talked about this being pro on 200 or against 200, we weren't the ones who started attacking personally motivations of anyone.
Okay, great. Thank you. So to my board members, if you guys have a question, can you just type in the little thing instead of just opening up so I can know, and we can just go by, I'll watch the chat, and I'll just call on your name so we don't have like everybody talking at once. So if you just want to type in, just a question mark or whatever, and then I can go down that for you guys to have a question. So Amy just popped up. So Amy, you can unmute and ask your questions, hon.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, perfect. Well, thank you for putting this together. It's been very educational. It definitely is confusing on what is the right thing to do. We all agree that we want development, but I feel like kind of disappointed we're in this position because I feel like it's another thing to argue about. I want to say, I think the concerns started bubbling up when people heard about the amount of rentals, the traffic, the increased crime concerns, and then the lack of like understanding the whole plan and vision. So I feel like having this ballot measure is kind of a way for people to protect themselves against the unknown. So I don't know how I'm going to vote. I don't really feel that it's I don't want it just to see it be parking and then nothing else ever. But I also understand the concerns of how we got to this position. So I guess I want to maybe understand, if the ballot measure doesn't pass and the rezoning doesn't happen, how can citizens have their concerns really addressed by the DDA and the town board? So if they don't like the project, they feel like it's just not a done deal. Because I feel like people feel like their backs might be against the wall at this point. That makes sense.
Okay, we're not here to represent the DDA. We're here to represent individual business owners. But I know the town has a process in place, and the developer will have community outreaches, and we'll take that information and go back to the drawing board and say, okay, now let's have the next stakeholder or community meeting, and then how do you guys like this? And then it'll be a process going back and forth, as every process is in this town. But one thing that I want to mention is, first off, we didn't attack anybody, but second, the back lots right now are ripe for nefarious activity. I found needles in the park area. I found needles in the back lot area. And of all the places of Windsor, when I work late and my wife is there working, I've come to the point where I walk her out at night because it's not very well lit. There's places where people can hide back there. And if you have retail back there, restaurants back there, and urban population that has higher economic, good jobs, good incomes and that stuff, that's going to deter that activity that is happening and will continue to happen.
And not just that, actually. So this is a public process that has to go through the planning commission, actually.
Yeah.
Everything actually has to be approved through the planning commission in the town before this can even be built. And none of that has actually even been approached yet because we haven't gotten that far. So there's proposals that have been placed in front of us. We haven't even actually, the DDA hasn't voted on anything yet either, actually, other than working with one developer. And so there's a very public process that all of this has to go through. First and foremost, actually, there has to be agreements written, but also it goes through the planning commission to have them approve it as well. So it's a public process.
But more importantly, the biggest thing that I see is if 200 passes, this sets a bad precedent. It sets a precedent where a group can get together and dictate to a private landowner, we're going to take your property, we're going to tell you what we're going to do with it. So irregardless of development or not, going back to 200, it's a dangerous precedent that may be set.
And so the question from Amanda, yes, this is actually.
Well, hold on. Before we move on to Amanda's question, I think, Susie, can we hear some opposition? I mean, they got 3 minutes to give an answer. I'd like some time to give an answer.
I thought we were just taking questions from the board.
Correct, but if you're just answering the questions, that's not really much of a question and answer session.
Okay, so maybe I'll just make it more specific, I guess, to my board. If you have a question, if it's for both of them, let's let them both talk, because like I said, I don't want this to be a debate. And so if my board members, if you guys want both of them, let me know that you want both, or if you just want one or the other to answer, let's just do that. Amy, do you care?
Well, I think if Cameron can speak to if it is
point of order.
Like, yeah, if Cameron can kind of address the private property issue.
Okay, and it's my understanding that Dr. Finney and Mr. Staus are both here as private individuals, not on behalf of the DDA, right? So it would be improper for them to address what the DDA is doing or thinking or considering. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but is that appropriate?
I think we understand that they're here about, I think my board would
concerns.
probably understand they're here about the 200.
So let me talk for a moment about some of the process of the planning department and what that's looked like, because I think it's unfair to characterize this as the first measure, the first time that anyone's tried to give input about parking to the town. Marissa and I have been involved in the parking committee. We've been involved in town planning. So has Jason. And attended under town board meetings. We have been as involved in this process of the Walnut Street corridor, redoing the parking and the bike lane there and the parking concerns in downtown, I think, as anybody else in this town. And one of the reasons that we did this, and I want to make sure this is on the record, is that we felt like our voice was not being heard by anyone. A number of you have probably gotten the flyers that say vote no on 200 that have a big tribe logo on the bottom. So there's certainly someone that's interested in developing that property. I don't want to spend any more time talking about the development or non-development. But I will say this, that the process of putting together that development has been steamrolled through the town council in the town without any checks and balances from anyone other than the town board. So that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that the town gets in front of this issue, right? And I want to spend just a second too, like the idea that the town's downtown area is not doing well right now is just not tracking with the reality of what anyone's seeing there. So is this a property rights question? We'll get to that, I guess, in a second. But yes, I have some thoughts on that too. This isn't a slippery slope precedent of some sort of we're going to now take any private property next to a park. That already exists. If the town decides that they're going to take a piece of property, that's eminent domain. That's what this means. What we're doing here isn't really eminent domain either. It's a rezoning of the property. And to jump to Amanda's question, it's not a permanent rezoning. The town
Okay, so
board
hold on.
only-
So hold on a minute. We haven't
Sorry.
even read Amanda's question yet. So are you done with Amy's question?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, because
I'm
I
not.
just need
Marissa,
to,
go ahead.
I want to make sure we're getting all these done. So Amanda's question is,
Oh,
if this is voted yes, does that make it permanent? And so I asked her, I just texted her if she wants both of you guys to respond that, and she does. So I guess Cameron, since you guys are unmuted, if this is voted yes for the 200, does that make it permanent?
It's permanent in name only. It's called a permanent parking zone, but the town board in 1 year can reverse the determination and make it not permanent parking, make it whatever else the town board wants to do.
Because it's an ordinance, and ordinances can change after that amount of time.
So does that put us right back in the same spot that we're in then?
Potentially. Again, I'm not 100% sold on this is the only answer to the problem that we have. What I am sold on is this is the answer that we've proposed because we haven't gotten any input or buy-in from anybody else about this problem and a way to solve it. And you know, with regard to the parking on the South Street of Maine, that's great, but you're still parking, you're taking away 400 parking spots and not adding any back. You're just repaving or rezoning.
Awesome.
And I would like to say this. Dan and I ran into each other at ACE one day, and I've been disappointed. I've been in the room with the mayor multiple times, and he's never talked to me. He's never tried to sit us down and come to a compromise. And I think that's something that Dan wishes would have happened. But we really haven't had an avenue to try to meet in the middle. We've gone through all of these very formal process things that I just feel like we're never listened to.
Thanks. Brent and Dan, did you guys have a response to Amanda's question?
Yeah, well, first off, I have a business that, or I have a building that will have another business that's going to be going under downtown too. And I'm not going to say which one it is, but it's one of my properties. So I disagree with that, Cameron. I'm more in the business community every day. The other thing that people need to understand is nothing has been signed. The only thing the DDA has ever signed with, and this is public knowledge, so I can say it as a business owner, is an exclusive negotiating agreement with the developer. So the town and the DDA will go through the proper steps talking with the developer. They will submit drawings. Those drawings will go and those concepts will come in front of the people, and that's how the process works. So nothing has been jammed down people's throats.
So, and in terms of actually this being permanent, so they're correct. The town board could reverse this in a year, but if you get this voted in by citizens, there's no town board that's actually going to come back a year from now and go, oh, you know what, let's go ahead and reverse that. It's just not going to happen. So is this going to be permanent? Potentially, actually. The problem that this sets up, a much bigger problem, is actually this is going to set up a litigation between the town and the property owners, actually, just because state constitution doesn't allow it, actually. And so the other problem is that when you actually do something like this and you say, okay, we're going to stop this whole process. Now, if we've been through a couple of different developers, actually, nobody else is going to want to come in and actually purchase or look at actually doing anything on these properties because the town of Windsor is so hard to deal with, actually. So we've already run into that.
And the other thing, if you want to look at too, if I can add to that really quickly, if you look at the DDA has no insurance for people parking on that lot to start with. So that's troublesome. I wouldn't want people parking on my property if it wasn't insured. What would you do if somebody's going to be taking your property? You may put up a fence. You may say, okay, I don't have insurance. I'm going to protect my property. I'm going to put up a fence.
Okay, so I have a quick question just to clear this all in my head. So that whole back lot that you guys were showing in those 3 pictures, the DDA owns all of those.
No, the town owns actually the lot next to 7th Street that's behind the Legion. The DDA,
Oh, okay,
the other
gotcha.
2 parcels. Only
Okay.
the DDA parcels are included in this. The town is not.
Oh, okay. So those ones that are back behind in the 200 lot, so you're saying those are not insured.
Right, none of it.
So,
And
do they
one
pay?
time-
Does anybody
What?
ever pay to park on those?
No.
Or is it just kind of free?
But that, who knows, that may occur. That may be fenced off and they may end up having to pay for parking. Because one thing, the DDA has to be self-sufficient of the town at some point, and so they have to create revenue, and the revenue that we get and the revenue the DDA gets and the revenue that was purchased, used to purchase these properties was from the DDA imposes a 5% mill tax, a property tax on all of the businesses downtown, the property owners downtown, plus from 2010, when the DDA was formed, any increment of property tax value also goes in the DDA coffers in order to be reinvested in the downtown. And the sales tax that generated within the district, the town has allowed the DDA to keep that to reinvest in. So one of the myths that I see on social media is, well, we all own the back lots. That's technically not true. You own, I guess, if you make a real stretch, because you purchase something in my business, you provide sales tax, but you also do that when you buy, anything from anywhere else. Doesn't mean that you own the buildings, So I hope that answers that.
Awesome. So Mark's comment was, so what I hear is 1,233 people can sign a petition to get a ballot issue going. Who is paying for this election? So this ballot that just went out, who does pay for that?
The town is paying
for it.
and
it's estimated $35,000 to $50,000. The taxpayer money is paying for this special election. And if it goes beyond that in litigation, you're going to have 2 entities suing each other. And one of them is going to be, well, basically, it's the money that the DDA taxes generate, but also your general fund from the town will also be providing the town attorney fees.
And I'll further point out that not only is the special ballot costing us as town residents money, one of the reasons that had to be done is that there was a challenge filed by a constituent that that caused the town to miss the deadline to put this on the general ballot. So this could have been on the general ballot, but it wasn't.
Okay.
So the other thing I'll just interject real fast is the DDA is a semi-public organization. The quasi-governmental organization. Its members are appointed by the mayor and the town board, and any argument otherwise is just not in good faith. It's just not.
Stacy, I'm not sure, we're drawing purchased from the developer.
One thing that needs to be pointed out is every DDA member is a volunteer too, because they all care about the downtown. Their life is within their businesses, and that's how deeply they care.
Kind of like our chamber. We're
Yeah,
all volunteering.
exactly.
We're all volunteering our time
Sure.
right now. And so that's why we're doing this, just so that the board can, and we can get educated on,
Yep.
the different sides and what people are talking about. So.
Well, so my comment on the drawings was based off of the comment that we feel like our backs are against the wall, right? So, we've tried to have the private meetings and whatnot. They say that this is a public process where the developer will go back and take public input and change things, but that's not the history that I've seen in working with both developers. Not that I've had a lot of contact with Tribe, but if the DDA is paying money, 60,000, I think was on the last DDA minutes that have been posted, 60,000 for drawings, isn't that a pretty sure fire thing? You know, how much can they honestly change from what has been presented is my question.
Amy, do you want to read, or do you want me to do that for you?
I just wanted to ask, we talked about litigation. So is that mandatory or optional if people vote to, I guess, pass or not pass the measure, or pass it, whatever, I don't know how it's written. So if it does get rezoned, is litigation mandatory or is that optional for the DDA?
Well, once again, we can't talk as we're here as business owners. That's up to the DDA board. And I know the DDA board responded, you know, online at some of this stuff, you know, so if you go back to, you know, some of the responses on social media, I know what I would do if it were me personally. I mean, why would I let somebody take my money? I mean, take my, well, take income and also take the property and do whatever they want with it. I mean, how would you respond? You know?
I guess I'd have to see the results and what people in Windsor thought.
Well, it'd be too late because they've already taken your property.
Well, again, to kind of reinforce what Dan sort of said there is litigation is 100% optional. There is no requirement that the DDA litigate this issue if it's approved. Amy, I want to make sure that I'm being precise with that language too. If the measure is approved, there is certainly a potential for litigation, but there's no requirement that the DDA do that. And if the DDA does it, it is because the DDA chooses to do so.
Okay, so I guess I want to make kind of this clear. So if this passes, somebody's going to be suing. If it doesn't pass, somebody's going to be suing. Is yes, no? Board? Is that, I mean,
I don't know. I mean, listen, if it doesn't pass, it would be the proponents of the measure that would take some action. I don't know off the top of my head. You're asking me to speak about a hypothetical that happens. I don't know an answer to you, Susie. Off the top of my head, I would say I don't know that there's probably a whole lot we could do about it legally. And as Dan, Mr. Stouse, so poignantly pointed out, we're volunteers. Like, we're investing our own money into this and time because we're concerned about our downtown. So, I don't know how much further this will go legally if we lose.
Okay, Amanda has a comment here. It looks like her mic's not working. So I see 4 business owners on here, 2 for 2 against. What are the other businesses owners saying? Do we know?
So, I mean, I can talk from the perspective of actually being downtown and visiting with a lot of the business owners. The majority of the business owners I've talked to are definitely for this, are against 200 and for us actually, or for some sort of a development going in downtown because they realize the foot traffic actually that'll bring in the business is good for all the downtown businesses. So have we actually set up a formal poll? No. I mean, we visit with a lot of them every day though.
But I know a lot of the business owners are afraid of speaking up because there was a group that, in order to intimidate a couple businesses, parked their vehicles right in front of the businesses to block parking there. And that occurred for about a month or so. And there were other businesses that were told, if you speak out in favor of what the DDA would be moving towards, we'll get on social media.
Well, and they did actually. I mean, we were attacked on social media pretty heavily. So a lot of business owners won't actually speak up on this issue because they're afraid of exactly that.
So I can tell you,
Amanda, yeah, I was gonna say, Amanda, that's a great question. And I don't know if we'll get an answer on that tonight, just because we do have so many businesses downstairs, down in the downtown area. It would be nice to know what those businesses are thinking as well, just because we represent all of those and we, but like you guys had just said, I don't know that there's a poll, but Amanda, that was a great question, just
what's interesting is how many business owners don't live in Windsor and how many do live in Windsor and are here every day and can speak to this as residents and business owners.
Well, and I want to jump in for a second too, because Amanda, that is a fantastic question, and I just want to get the numbers right here. I mean, Stacy is here on behalf of both Manweiler Hardware and the Appliance Shop. You know, Jason's here on behalf of Chimney Park and Hearth. I don't know if the two of them have had conversations with other business owners. I have, and many of them have expressed to me that they are for 200. But again, I don't know how much of an informal poll is going to be valuable. And Susie, like you said, I mean, this isn't the downtown Windsor Chamber of Commerce. It's the Windsor Area Chamber of Commerce. And the board needs to make decisions based on what's best for the town and the area, not just, you know, downtown and downtown residents and downtown business owners who are downtown residents.
Yeah, well, I don't know that we're making any decisions, you guys.
No, and that was imprecise language. I'm just saying, like, as
educating
you go forward,
ourselves. Yeah,
right.
that's all we're doing right now is just educating ourselves. We're not making a decision. You know, we just wanted to know, because we do represent a lot of all of our amazing, you know, businesses that join us. I just felt like it was our board's, it was our duty to hear both sides, because we haven't done that. And so that's why we set this up, so that we could represent and give that to our board.
You know, and I would say that there's probably just as many business and property owners. Not everyone down here owns a business, but there are also property owners that are for this, you know, versus against. I know that it's kind of a toss up here, but there are multiple business owners that are concerned, and property owners that are concerned about the parking.
Yeah. You know, and I think that we hear a lot of it, and we know, because we do have businesses that are going out of business. We have businesses that are thriving. And it's our job to do what we can to help businesses grow, because we want them to stay here. And so with that being said, again, that's why we're doing what we're doing right now, is because we love that people come to our community. We love that people come down here. And I don't know that we'll ever get, you know, all of them are for, all of them are against. It's just our job to know what's being said out there from both sides. And, you know, that's just kind of where we're at. And we're kind of getting close to that hour right now. We're literally at the hour and 20 minutes, which we kind of have set aside. And so you guys have presented to the board here. Those that weren't able to be here, it's going to be recorded. It's going to be sent to them so that they're educated just as well. And so from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for taking out this time on your Tuesday evening with the holidays right there. And so we just are so grateful for all of you. And I think that's where we'll leave it at. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and that everybody's 2023 is stupendous and wonderful. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.